I thought when making a shifter story that I needed to make drama, I needed to make romance, I needed to make spice, and then I needed to make a happy ever after. And it turns out that's not entirely true. When I started my story Marked, I found out that I rather focus on the start than the ending. For me, Marked was a project to get myself fully back into writing again. I used to make comics and I never really finished a majority of them. And then I was like, let me start something. Let me do something. So I started Marked, and originally it was just going to be a story that I kind of drew out, not comic like, maybe a little bit more storybook like. And I was like, that feels right. So I went in full bullheaded with no expectations. I spent a couple of months just going, this could be interesting. I did a quick little outline of what I thought would happen, and then I was like, let's draw, which is it's been my downfall in the past. It did actually slightly help me later on in my process for Marked, but not up front. It made me very confused in the beginning. I looked at what I had made and I said, oh no, it's not good. The little perfectionist within me has issues. She tells me, you need to make something so much better than what you just made. You're hurting me. And so that's how Marked became a full story. But I still did not want to make an ending. And that's when I realized I don't have to make an ending. I can make a beginning. So we had a struggle going on already. I had drawings that I had started. I already had 12 full panels sketched out, which I know doesn't sound like a lot. But for me, I was feeling mighty impressed with me. I was like, I have sketches, I have a story. But then I realized I didn't like where the story was going. Marked is about a female wolf shifter alpha who gets injured in her current fight. It is winter time and she's got the biggest territory. All the other alphas and surrounding packs want her territory. And so she generally ends up fighting them. And she usually wins. And she still wins. However, she gets more injured. And her pack sends her away. Then we meet Marius. He is a very tired cafe manager. He's tired. He doesn't know what's happening anymore. He keeps dealing with customers. And all Marius really wants is some beer and chips. And that beer and chips turned into him meeting the female wolf shifter, who I've been calling her. She does not have a name, which I find kind of fun because everybody's like, oh, my characters have a name. Nope, my MC, she doesn't have a name. She is just her. She meets him. She realizes that he is her mate. And she decides she's going to claim him. He does not realize that she is a shifter. And he takes her home thinking she's pretty much a big dog. And later, he figures out she's not. End of story. Now, I also understand you're like, oh, you just gave away your whole story. No. There's in between parts. It is coming out soon, guys. So if you are actually interested in reading it, maybe give me a follow and you'll get an update when it's actually coming out. But while creating Marked, I had a really hard time because, one, I was still at the point of, if I'm not creating where the romance is at, but I'm creating where the romance can begin, I was like, well, how does that work, honestly? I was not entirely sure, and I went full gusto mode again. I was just like, we'll see what happens, which did take quite a bit of drafting, but it 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 honestly turned out to me going, well, I enjoy shifting between POVs. So I would start off with her POV, maybe have another one of her POVs, and then I would switch to Marius's POV. That was my experiment that turned out to be important for my story. The story became less of me trying to explain their romance, which I was like not at in their story, and more me explaining what leads to an eventual romance. Marked has genuinely helped me realize that a story doesn't have to start and end the way people expect it to. Sometimes a story is just the beginning. It does not have to be the whole goddamn story, which is perfect because it's actually really allowed me to get through Marked in a way that feels more real to me. I think we sometimes focus a little too much on the ending, and sometimes that's the hard part for people, and sometimes the start is a lot easier. And for me, the start is where I love to be at. Don't get me wrong, I do want to be able to at some point make it into some of the middle ground stuff, but sometimes the middle can also be the start. There's so many things that people don't really consider when making stories, honestly. I think they just think, okay, I have to have a full arc. I have to be like, let me plot every single detail of these characters' lives out. And don't get me wrong, some of those stories are amazing, but also sometimes it can just be a period that we get to see into their lives. Well, that's really all I have to say, guys. If you are, wanting to see when the actual update for my story comes out, feel free to follow me. I will be talking about story stuff because that's my whole thing, guys. Bye.